Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I got to show you something neat that a lot of us in the meteorological community were watching on Saturday, and this is an animation here in the Midwest, looking at low-level clouds right over parts of Indiana and Ohio and parts of Michigan on Saturday. And what we were watching, and I'll tell you, Andrew Pritchard, one of our outstanding meteorologists, kind of alerted me to this, is look right there in kind of northeastern central Indiana. If you kind of look in there, we see this little cloud feature right here. Watch it again as the animation starts over. See this clearing in through here? Now, what was going on? Well, this cloud deck that you see around here was actually composed of supercooled water. In other words, the cloud droplets were liquid, even though their temperatures were below freezing. Well, the exhaust from probably a factory right here in this part of Indiana was basically seeding that cloud, turning that supercooled water over to ice crystals or snow. And it cleared it out as it precipitated. So this is a form of man-made cloud seeding. Unintentional, it's just from the factory here, but it was beautiful to see how it cleared that out. We see this a lot of time with jets that fly through stuff like this as well. By the way, notice maybe coming off of Detroit here and also parts of northeastern Ohio, we saw the same thing. So this is just an awesome feature to be able to watch here from our high-resolution satellites. Now, I was impressed overall with the performance of the European model last week when it picked up on where we were going to be seeing quite a bit of our snowfall. We look over the last 3 days, we can see pretty heavy snowfall amounts stretching all the way from Montana down into Missouri, Iowa, and even parts of Wisconsin, where we saw over 6 inches of snow in some locations. You probably all heard about the tragic accidents that were in parts of Missouri due to very poor visibility and extremely slick roads due to the snow that was falling along I-70. Just a tragic event there, massive pileups that I saw over the weekend. I just want to tell you something. We are not done with snow in these areas. That's why I'm kind of bringing this up. My bigger concern when it comes to agriculture right now, though, has to be what I'm seeing right in this area. Through parts of the Tennessee Valley, getting back into the lower mid-Mississippi River Valley, that area, so I'm talking about Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, then getting back into the Ohio River Valley, we've picked up over the last 30 days a surplus of 5 to 8 inches of rain. And even just this past weekend, if we look over the last 3 days, this same area has added another 1 to, in some locations, almost 3 inches of rainfall. Now, our major flooding events, our widespread flooding events that happen on our major river systems, they often take several weeks or months to evolve. So what we're seeing now is going to be something we're going to be dealing with for quite some time. USGS has already identified 274 gauges across the U.S. that are near or at flood stage, with 143 of them at flood stage. And if you kind of look here in Arkansas and Tennessee, this area, we've even got 3 gauges at major flood stage. So my concern is we're going to continue to put down more rain in that area, and these rivers are already swollen, causing problems. And it's just these flooding events on our major river systems. Remember, the Mississippi River basically drains 40% of the land area of the United States. These flooding events don't just come and go, they tend to last for quite some time. Now, why I'm so concerned is we have split flow in the jet stream. See it like this? And this jet streak right in through here has wind speeds at certain places at certain times over 230 miles an hour. So when you think about that, imagine you were going to go from a flight from like Dallas to New York City. You got a 230 mile an hour tailwind on this thing. Now, whenever we get these longer waves in the jet stream with this broader trough feature sitting here, these longer waves don't move. They don't eject. They don't get out of the way, which means this ridge that's setting up here in Alaska, really it starts here and goes all the way up into Alaska. That ridge is established and it's going to dominate things at least through the next 10 to 15 days. So, bigger problem? Underneath that jet streak, we're going to be continually pulling tropical moisture from the Gulf there into the Tennessee Valley, into the southeast, and that's going to cause major problems. So this is the context of this whole video. Let's look over here on the left first, looking at total accumulated precipitation from the 0Z model run. I'm concerned here about major flooding. We have maybe between 2 and 6 inches of rain possible. At least that's what the model's predicting. This area is all heavy snow. This area is heavy snow, and we're talking about some major coastal precipitation here coming around that split flow, hitting Washington and Oregon from the northwest. Now let's go over here and look at our snowfall amounts. I shouldn't say look at the snow, look at the snowfall placement. We can see that we're going to be seeing quite a bit of snowfall that will stretch from parts of Kansas, really getting into Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I know you're seeing some big numbers in here, but we're going to talk about what really we should be doing here, which is looking at the placement. Each one of the systems that will be blanketing that part of the country with snow are going to come out of the Four Corner states first. And that's why we see at the higher elevations down here in Arizona, New Mexico, getting into parts of Colorado and Utah, some major snowfall totals in the mountains, okay? Because we're going to be seeing split flow around that Alaskan ridge, our systems coming into the northwest are going to be coming out of the northwest. So this is the setup. Let's talk about it. Now, you often hear me referring to short waves and long waves. And what am I talking about? Well, the long wave is this. See it? Big long wave trough is established here. There's a ridge that starts off, kind of pushes up into the northeast. Now watch the difference between what I just drew here and what you're about to see coming out of Arizona once we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's just pause it right there. So you just saw the longer wave. I went back here. This is Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, into Wednesday morning. Now this time we see this little feature that does something like this. That is kind of our shorter wave with a little jet streak right into this area. So jet streaks are little pockets that are faster moving. Now generally, when we think about this, we get divergence. I'll put a star there. Divergence at what we call the left exit region of a jet streak. But because this particular jet streak isn't in the most favorable position with the longer wave flow like this, it's going to be producing a low pressure system, but it won't be quite as strong as it could have been otherwise. Let me show you what I mean by otherwise. So I'll take my drawings off, and that's the first system. Remember, Tuesday into Wednesday morning, going across the middle part of the country. There it goes. There's that jet streak exiting through the Great Lakes. Now look at this. This is now Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday morning. Now we're getting pretty far out in the forecast, but look at this. This is now valid Saturday evening. And from Texas, so we're kind of seeing right in through here, there's a short wave. It is negatively tilted. It is lifting off in this direction, but it is in a favorable position for the flow of the atmosphere to combine the curvature effects of the flow and the jet streak effects. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit into dynamics here, but I need to know this because when you look at this, this will initiate the development of a very strong low pressure system somewhere around Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota for this next Saturday night. And that's when we got to talk about. Now look at this. Meanwhile, sitting down here, big area of higher pressure pumping moisture into this system. This is a pattern that is set up to be very active for the eastern two-thirds of the country. And let's take a look at it here, right? The first system first with our high-resolution model. I'm just going to play this for you. Look at the Four Corner states. You can see the upper-level trough spinning there. Here comes all the moisture out ahead of it, and the first low takes shape. Again, it started here and did something like this. Now, much of this, there's going to be a lot of rain out ahead of this on Tuesday into Wednesday morning. A couple areas I'm concerned about for snowfall. Certainly it's going to be this area. We've already got a winter storm watch out for this part of Iowa right in through here, and I expect this to expand. We could see brief, very heavy snows as this system comes out, especially I'm thinking right down here in the Ohio River Valley in Ohio. And also a transition as we go from the snow. Remember, the system lifts, so it's going to start off as snow. It then transitions to sleet, freezing rain, and then over terrain as the warm sector arrives. Now, this is just our first system. This isn't really the one that's going to be that big of a deal, but I'll show you at least total snowfall out of it. When we look here, this will be the area that sees widespread 1 to 3 inches with heavier snowfall amounts right in here, possibly over 4 inches of snow, maybe even some locally heavier amounts. You can also see in southern Ohio some heavier snowfall amounts, but this will be a very heavy, brief hitting snow that'll probably switch over to rain once it goes past. So this isn't going to be a very high liquid to snow ratio. It's going to be a very wet snow. And of course, the higher elevations in the Four Corner states are piling up. But look at this, total accumulated rainfall. We might pick up in this area, these two areas here, an additional 1 to 3 inches of rain. And this is just the beginning of this, okay? Now, what are we looking at over the next, let's call this 10 days? I kind of spelled it out for us over there on the left. Out west, our coastal lows are going around the Alaskan Ridge hitting here. So it's going to be this region, Washington and Oregon, that are going to get the most precip. Because we've stopped that Pineapple Express, California goes drier. You just saw that most of our short waves initiate out of the Four Corner states. So it's a lot of snow at higher elevations before these systems eject into the Central Plains. In the Midwest, these lifting troughs go toward the Great Lakes, and as a result of that warm air out ahead of them, brutally cold air comes in behind them, very, very strong winds, and this area and through here is where I'm concerned about the heaviest snows. In the south, right down here, a lot of rain, a whole lot of rain with each one of these systems, storms closer to the Gulf, and in the northeast, it's going to be a lot of interior snows and also extremely windy. Now, I said all that, drew it all on there, but let me just show it to you kind of in action. Are you ready? Here comes system number 1. This is going to be coming out Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. We talked about that one. The trough then reloads over the Four Corner states. See it there? And here comes system number 2. Now, this is the big one for next weekend. Now, remember, we're 150 hours out in the forecast, so we're pretty far out here. But I'll show you in a minute why I have quite a bit of confidence in the arrival of the storm. We don't have the details down yet. That's why I told you we can't pin down snowfall amounts. But this is what happens when we have the longer wave in this position with little short waves coming out here and coming out into the Central Plains. Again, you saw most of your systems coming in to the northwest from the northwest because the Alaskan Ridge is dominating the flow. But this takes you out through the next week, and I'll just keep playing. You'll see here as we get through this. Let's watch it again real quick. I'm sorry, let's watch this again real quick. There goes system number 1. Here comes system number 2. And until that pattern breaks down, we just kind of keep seeing those systems move through. Now, to show you my confidence in that low pressure system next weekend, here's next Saturday night. The European ensemble, this is a 51-member ensemble, are pinpointing this area to be watching for the development of that low. Now, it's going to wiggle. It might move back to the west a little bit. It might move a little bit to the north. It could shift around, but it's just showing me that there's good, strong model agreement that this low pressure system I just showed you for next weekend is in the works. So because of that, I want to show you the European ensemble's probability of at least 6 inches of snow. So you can see that in this area, we're talking about better than 50%, some locations getting up here towards 70, 80% of having the heavy snow. So I drew a line right where I think the heaviest snows are going to be. Interior snows up here in parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, even parts of New York. And then, of course, the Four Corners, higher elevations, big snows. And remember, our lows are coming in this direction out west, so we're talking about some bigger snowfall events out there as well. Okay, in terms of temperature, the Alaskan Ridge dominates. Any warm-ups we get in the eastern half of the country are temporary. They're out ahead of low pressure systems. And we just keep that longer wave in place. And because of that, we get all the way here to the beginning of March, and we just don't see a breakdown in the pattern. It may be, deep into the first part of March before we really start to see any substantial seasonal warm-ups here that could really change our pattern. To finish this up, I want to take you just a quick, brief global tour here. Right now, just east of Australia, we're watching a tropical system that is just on the southern side of the equator, which runs right about through here. We see along the intertropical convergence zone, we've got our thunderstorms lined up right there on the equator, and another system just north. Now, what's the point of showing you that? This is very active phase 8 convection. So phase 8, if I kind of get rid of these drawings here, it kind of sits right in this area. And so what we're doing is we're moving from phase 8 over to phases 1 and 2. Now, why bring that up? Well, that's a very favorable phase for wetter than average conditions across Brazil, which is what we see in the next 15 days. It's also drier down in Argentina. It's good for a safrinha crop, and also Argentina needs to dry out a little bit in some locations. Unfortunately, as it dries out, we might even see some upper 90s and some triple-digit heat this week. For Australia, because much of the thunderstorm activity stays to its east, we still see this drier pattern for much of Australia moving over the next 15 days as well. And because of the highly amplified pattern across much of the U.S. and Pacific, it's extending all the way over to Europe. We see that over this week, a dominant ridge will be setting up right in this area, kind of over the North Sea. And as a consequence, Europe is going to spend much of the next week with warmer than average temperatures. So that was our quick kind of global tour of some of the major stuff we're watching around the world. But with that, I'm wrapping this video up. We hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming out on Thursday morning. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you